The following day, Frank discovers Lloyd in his office early in the morning, holding the pigeon they received from a swan. Lloyd instructs Frank to deliver it to the dragon, offering an unspecified proposal. Meanwhile, Katrina receives an exclusive invitation for a private meeting from Anne. She prepares meticulously, donning her most exquisite attire to impress. However, upon arriving at the designated garden meeting spot, Katrina is taken aback to find Anne dressed in knight's attire, accompanied by her dragon. Katrina is unnerved by the sight of the dragon, but Anne, unfazed, proceeds to engage her in tea. Anne teases Katrina for her apprehension and jokingly suggests that the dragon enjoyed the pigeon Katrina had gifted them. Though Armin didn't actually consume the bird, he played along to enhance Lloyd's living conditions. Anne subtly threatens Katrina by implying that dragons find pretty things appetizing, hinting at her vulnerability. Anne feels drained after maintaining her villainous facade throughout the day. She had promised Armin 10 fried chickens daily to secure his cooperation, which effectively unsettled Katrina. Despite Katrina's persistence, Anne acknowledges her rival's superior etiquette and influence. Determined not to lose her husband's affection, Anne resolves to improve herself. Meanwhile, Charlotte serves as a maid in Louise's household, under the watchful eye of the obsessive Louise. Charlotte believes that the next phase of her plan will commence during Lloyd's upcoming war with the Esche Dukedom, during which his Jugendorf blood triggers a violent transformation. She aims to possess Anne's body before this happens to save Lloyd from his fate. Charlotte briefly considers accompanying Louise to an event at the Imperial Palace, hoping to encounter Anne. However, she decides against it upon learning it is the female researcher's day, assuming Anne won't attend. Similarly, Katrina also doubts Anne's presence at the event, and that is why she is planning to increase her influence through this event. Katrina does what she does best and charms everyone before asking them if the Empress won't be coming to this important event. The women there get nervous as they tell her that Anne has never attended any event, so she probably won't be coming. But Katrina says that's not true, as Anne invited her for tea earlier. Everyone is shocked, because in the royal power scenario, inviting just one person to a tea party can be a move to keep them in check. Katrina plans to take advantage of this and tries to gain the sympathy of other women by saying that Anne's dragon tried to bite her hand, and she starts crying. Everyone believes, and they agree that Anne is too crazy to be the Empress. Katrina is happy that it is all working. But then Louise asks her if she is sure that the Empress had full control over the dragon. Now Katrina is confused because she thought that Louise would be angry at Anne for becoming the Empress when she was the most prominent candidate for it. But now she is taking Anne's side. She then notices the magical jewel Katrina is wearing and approaches it. But coincidentally, Anne makes her appearance at the party just then, forcing everyone to halt. Now that the Empress herself is here, the attention of the crowd completely shifts to her, and Katrina realizes that no one is noticing her, just like that day. On the other hand, Lloyd is visiting the prison where Albert is kept. He asks him to let him go, but Lloyd has no plans to leave him so easily. Albert doesn't mind it that much because he is curious about Jugendorf's blood and the Emperor's veins. The Jugendorf were a race that was vastly superior to humans in all areas, and the mix made from the blood of their strongest warriors was called Jugendorf's blood. Lloyd's dad found the blood in an ancient ruin, and he experimented on countless people to see if anyone could endure it. No one could, of course, except for his own son, who turned into a monster as he escaped the hellish experiment facility. Albert taunts Lloyd that the reason he doesn't kill him is that he is curious about his wife, and how could she summon a dragon? He asks the Emperor if he doesn't want to know more about her because she is certainly not an ordinary girl like she pretends to be. Lloyd suddenly feels uneasy because Anne is the only person he trusts fully, and he doesn't want her to be lying to him too. Albert offers to find her secrets, but he needs some of her body parts as a sample for that. Lloyd is furious and tries to kill him for real, but Frank arrives just then with an important message. He had sent a few men to bring the maids who served Anne at her childhood home, but they found that for the past few years, there were no maids in her palace. At the same time, Anne is getting bored to death listening to various research topics in the seminar. She keeps on acting like I did back in physics class, and she gets a chance to relax. As the researchers take a break, Katrina approaches her to discuss the advanced research topics. But Louise once again steps up to preserve Anne as her prey. She even tells Katrina that according to the Empire's laws, she can't talk to the Empress until she talks to her first or gives her permission. While the princess is frustrated, Anne is impressed by Louise's knowledge and thinks that she will be a perfect fit as her second lady in waiting because she is smart and elegant. Back at the palace, Lloyd asks the knight who went to fetch Anne's maids to explain everything in detail. The knight explains that he went there and found that the palace Anne claimed to live in was nothing more than a run-down storehouse. Lloyd is taken aback to hear this because while Anne had some vivid memories about her 3 maids, she couldn't tell him any names when he asked her earlier. He doesn't think she is lying, but it is still too much for him to process. At night, he heads out of his office and instead of going to Anne's room like usual, he goes straight to his room. 3 days pass and Lloyd has not left his room, and his servants feel that he must have had a big fight with Anne. She is not in a good mood about being left on hold either, and she angrily approaches Lloyd and loudly knocks on his door. At first, Anne just thought that the Emperor was too busy to see her. But when he didn't come the next day, Armin told her about the rumors that Lloyd was planning to impeach her on the 3rd day and couldn't control her rage anymore and came to his palace where she could hear creepy, scraping sounds that did not pass her vibe check. Suddenly, she sees the vision of a child crying and grows impatient. She asks the servants to break open the door, but they are not willing to do it, so she decides to do it herself. However, just as she is about to bash a chair against the door, Lloyd opens the door and stops her. He looks sad and simply pulls her in before slamming the door shut. He pins her to the bed, and Anne notices that the creepy sound is gone. Now Lloyd notices the bruises she got from knocking too hard on the door and suddenly asks her who on earth she is to hear the voices of Jugendorf. Anne simply tells him that she is his wife, but it seems like she won't be for long. Lloyd is distraught on hearing this, and he has no intention of letting her go. But Anne says that if they are going to get divorced eventually, it is better to do it when they have no kids. Lloyd knows that a lot of his enemies want to get hold of his successor, who has Jugendorf blood, and the blood of that ancient race also urges him to have many offspring. He cannot have children as long as he doesn't want to, but now that he has Anne in his arms like this, he is not sure that he can suppress that desire any longer. He says that if she wants a baby, he will put one in her right away. But Anne says she doesn't want that. She only wants him to stay safe. Lloyd is moved by this and hugs her, saying that if she wants his safety, she should just stay like this. So no baby and no divorce. What the drama for then? Meanwhile, Ella has reached the land of spirits and he bores some innocent spirits with the long stories he tells. He then asks them if there is any spirit who knows a good deal about Jugendorf blood. And the spirits freak out, because that name is a taboo. The spirits suffered a lot because of the Jugendorf race in the past. But despite that, Al has no choice but to do Lloyd's bidding and find some useful information, and walks inside to greet Ayura, a tomboy spirit who hates his guts. Al cuts to the chase and asks her about Jugendorf's blood. And Al asks her if there is a way to return a person consumed by Jugendorf's blood to normal. She is shocked because long ago, the Grand Sorceress asked her the same question. Back at the palace, Katrina is having a tough time because Anne is deliberately countering all her moves. Her magic necklace is losing its power, and to overcome this problem, she decides to seek the help of the Guardian Sorceresses. She tells them the details about Anne, who is 24 years old. And coincidentally, it is the same time when the Grand Sorceress asked Ayura the unique question. Al finds it hard to believe because the Grand Sorceress has been believed to be dead for centuries. But Ayura thinks that she is someone who cannot be held back even by death. However, she never met her in person and only talked through a bowl of water. Back at the palace, Katrina connects with a Guardian Sorceress and introduces herself as the heir to the Grand Sorceress. The Guardian Sorceress panics on hearing this because the magic necklace was crafted by the Grand Sorceress herself. She immediately wakes the other 2 Guardian Sorceresses who cannot believe that the magic necklace would fail. But as they hear Anne's name, they immediately realize what is up. They know Anne well and tell Katrina that she has no chance to beat her. Meanwhile, Anne is in Lloyd's room, and she is upset that he took away her clothes but did not do anything. After that, he appears right behind her and causes her to freak out, before telling her that he took her clothes because that is the only way to ensure that she won't leave his room. Anne realizes that he is still insecure because she said she would leave him, and she feels guilty about that. Lloyd then tells her that she will get the vitamin D later, and then asks Anne why she is walking around the room. She claims that she wanted to see some childhood pictures and know more about his past, but he tells her that there is nothing interesting in his room or in his childhood. After that, Lloyd reveals that he is going to war with the Dukedom of Esha soon, and Frank will be coming with him, too. That is why he wants to introduce Anne to a silver-haired boy who will be her bodyguard for that duration. She immediately recognizes that he is Albert and refuses to let that perverted magic freak anywhere near her. Anne is not happy that her husband chose a weirdo as her bodyguard, but he assures her that he has signed a contract that forbids Albert from harming her. To prove his point, he asks her to order the magician to do something embarrassing, and she tells him to lay on his stomach, and he instantly does that. Anne is amused by this, and she treats Albert like he is a dog who does many tricks. She is satisfied after toying with him for 30 minutes. But she still does not want Lloyd to go to war. He tells her that he can't do that because he has to get revenge on a lot of people. A few days earlier, Louise proudly told her that the Empress herself had asked her to be her lady-in-waiting. Charlotte was eager to move to the palace with her, but Louise forbade her to do so because she knew Frank was looking for her to protect her from him. Earlier she had lied, saying that Charlotte fell in love with a random man she met in a bar and stole some of her jewels to elope with him. Charlotte was not happy about the story, but she had no choice, and Louise asked her to change her hairstyle and wear thick glasses. The next day, Louise starts teaching Anne how to be a great empress. She gives Anne complex lessons to try to throw her off her game. But Anne replies with just a smile and acts like she got it all. After that, Louise suggests that she reply to some of the invitations she has received, and the first one is from Katrina. Since the princess is a common enemy of Anne and Louise, they decide to join forces to show her who is the boss. A few days ago, Katrina received a message from a redhead calling her to a meeting in a secret spot. The redhead told Katrina that she should become the next empress with her help and choose her as the lady-in-waiting. When that happens, Katrina accepted her offer, and the redhead assigned 2 noble girls to act as her assistants. Back to the present. Anne and Louise have prepared for their meeting with Katrina. Anne recalls that Lloyd left her with a special weapon in case of emergencies, and she decides to take it out now. But it is something more shocking than she expected. The news about the Empress meeting Katrina in a newly opened casino spread among the nobles, and they all swarm to that casino to get a chance to talk with her. Albert has heard all this, and he doesn't care one bit about it. However, he is curious about why Louise has been treating him so nicely since day one. She only pities him because he is Anne's plaything, and he decides to keep up the act since it is fun. Louise tells him to count on her if things get tough, but as she touches his hands, she feels that his magic power is similar to that of the magician who saved her once. She blushes as she thinks about this and runs away. But Albert seems to have noticed that she also has traces of Eugendorf's blood. Soon after that, Katrina is at the casino waiting for Anne because she plans to take her down today. Her carriage soon arrives there, and everyone is shocked that only her ladies-in-waiting came out of it. They think that the Empress is not coming because she hates Katrina. But Louise tells them to look up. Anne is riding the legendary winged horse, Pegasus, which only allows the Emperor to ride it. They can't believe that Anne has the scepter of the Emperor, which is one of the 4 true imperial treasures that represent the Emperor's authority. Even Anne was flabbergasted as she found this out. And now, as Katrina sees her with the scepter, she realizes that it means that in the absence of Lloyd, Anne is the sovereign of this country. Katrina thinks that she can't say anything about her importance now, and Anne even behaves like a proper empress. So pointing out her lack of manners isn't an option anymore either. They sit down for their first casino game, and Albert just watches from a distance. He had warned Anne that Katrina was using magic unfairly, but she still wanted to take her on. He can tell that Katrina is a sorceress who is all supposed to be dead. He also knows that the power doesn't work on Anne, and he plans to research it later. But for now, he wants her to win for Louise's sake. Otherwise, he is going to be mad. The game starts, and Katrina bets a heap of gold chips, and in exchange, Anne bets a blue gemstone and a blue phoenix projection comes out of it. The gemstone is called the blood drop of the blue phoenix, which is said to drop when the mythical bird pledges loyalty to someone. And Lloyd just gave it to Anne. One day she decides to wager the Emperor's scepter too, and then asks the poor princess to match the bet if she wants to keep playing with her. And the only way for her to do that is to put her status on the line. Katrina thinks it is a good chance to take something really precious away from Anne. She is confident about winning using her magic, and gladly takes up her offer. As for the game, Anne claims that she doesn't know anything about casino games, so they will just throw 3 dice, and whoever gets the higher total wins. Katrina accepts the game, but before they can play, Anne wants Albert to check if the dice are fair. The best way to do that is to kiss the dice. And after making everyone uncomfortable, Albert says that the dice are not influenced by magic. The game starts, and Katrina uses her magic really hard to turn things in her favor. But Anna tells her that her maid taught her that there should be no tricks involved when making a bet. Then, with the power of plot armor, she suddenly cancels out Katrina's magic at once. The dealer removes the cups and finds that Katrina has gotten 3 1s and Anne has gotten 3 6s, winning the game by far. Now Albert is shocked because he thought he would use magic to protect Anne, but she somehow did that on her own. Katrina is devastated that she lost, and she cannot accept the fact because she is a sore loser. On the other hand, Anne is really glad that she won and retained the scepter while teaching the poser princess a lesson. However, now that the people have shifted their admiration from Katrina to her, Anne can think of only one way to keep her villainous act. She immediately hugs Albert, saying that she couldn't have won without his help, and now she wants to enjoy his melodious voice in her bedroom. Needless to say, the people are all horrified, and she immediately rushes home. There she hopes for her husband to return from war quickly, unaware of the dangers that await him. Meanwhile, Lloyd has conquered all of Escia except for the Duke's castle, and he commands all his soldiers to withdraw, because he has some personal score to settle with the Duke. He is tired of fighting and of the voices asking him to seek revenge and wants to return home to Anne. After he finishes this battle, he soon reaches Archduke Paris, who was the researcher who turned him into a monster. He mocks Lloyd for pretending to be a human when he is just a monster inside, and mocks his relationship with his empress as well. Paris realizes that the monster has finally fallen in love, and he plans to take advantage of the fact. Lloyd moves towards him to kill him, but walks into a trap. Paris uses a magic circle to call forth his latest experiment using Jugendorf's blood, and he has dressed it exactly like Lloyd to taunt him. He attacks it only to find that it is a mirror. Lloyd is horrified as he realizes that he has turned into a monster, and his screams rattle the entire castle. Back in the Imperial Palace, Anne somehow hears his scream. Caitlin is cleaning her room, and she has found the broken emerald of Al and tells her to keep it aside for the talkative spirit in case he wants it. And he has the devil's luck because he teleports in front of them right away. He asks Anne where the Emperor is because he has some bad news. Meanwhile, in Escia, Lloyd has almost turned into a true monster, and Paris says that he planned to die at his hands here if it meant that he could turn him into his true form. Dark smoke releases from Lloyd's body, and as Frank sees it from a distance, he realizes that all hell is about to break loose. He commands all his knights to retreat in fear for his emperor's life. Back at the Imperial Palace, Al wonders what to tell Anne, because Lloyd forbade him from mentioning Jugendorf to her. So he decides to take her to the Emperor directly. He asks Albert for help since he looks decently strong, and the magician puts Louise to sleep because he still wants her to see him as a cute boy. Al then creates a portal that connects to the Escia dukedom, and Anne peeks through it to see the horrific black smoke. Suddenly, a pair of white hands push her inside the portal just as it vanishes, and Albert and Caitlin fear that Lloyd will kill them if he finds out about it. Suddenly, someone comes to call the Empress for a meeting, and everyone panics until Albert creates a fake that can act as a decoy for a while. Meanwhile, Anne falls into a library, and a book falls on top of her. It has a memory about her past when she got soaked after being careless near an old fountain. She scours through many books and finds that all of them are about her, and the male lead in her stories is always Lloyd. She is happy that someone ships them so much, but then she reads that every story ends with both of them dying. She is furious and plans to burn them all, but a mysterious voice tells her that it won't work since each book is a separate world. Anne turns around to see a blonde woman with horns who introduces herself as the Dragon Lord's ghost. Anne greets her, knowing that she is Armin's mother, and then asks her what this place is and why she keeps dying. In all the books, the Dragon Lord tells her that she and the Anne who died are different, but she cannot answer all her questions because the Grand Sorceress has arranged things this way. She can't even send her home, but she can send her to the page that is being written right now. Anne is confused, but then the Dragon Lord says that it is the last time, so she can do at least this much for her. She creates a portal that will lead her to whoever she is seeking, and Anne invites her to come along and see her son. The Dragon Lord laughs and says that giving birth to him was enough. She is curious about how Anne tamed him and learns that it was from a book. She has no problem believing her and thinks that one of the books from this library made its way to her. Anne still struggles to understand it, but now that the portal that will take her to Lloyd is ready, she steps into it. As she jumps out of it, the Dragon Lord tells her that she will forget everything about this place once she reaches her world, and Anne just freaks out. And as she breathes her last, she asks the Grand Sorceress to look after Anne since she is the girl's mother. Meanwhile, Anne falls in the capital of Esha, and she is stunned to find the destruction everywhere and a black cloud of smoke that leaves only bones in its wake. As she is wondering what is happening, a desperate scientist comes out, apologizing to Lloyd for everything he has done. Anne asks him who he is and what is happening here, but the scientist quickly figures out that she is Lloyd's wife and takes her hostage. Thinking that it is his ticket to safety, she refuses to cooperate with him. He throws her to the ground, but before he can do anything else, Lloyd kills him without wasting a moment. Anne is horrified as she sees the tyrannical side of her husband, which she had only heard about before. She is frozen stiff and can only cry as the black cloud mass approaches her, but then it suddenly wipes a tear off her face, and Anne knows that Lloyd is still conscious even within this monstrosity. She tries to reach out to him, but the black smoke moves away from her, and she suddenly hears the horrific screams as before. Meanwhile, Lloyd is in a dark place inside his subconscious mind. He is shaken to his core since Anne found out the very thing he wanted to keep a secret from her. The voices behind him say that they can simply kill her if she found out the truth, but Lloyd is adamant that he won't harm her. He wants Anne to run away, but instead, she chooses to jump off the building. Rather than letting her husband hurt her, she plans to end her life herself. Lloyd is terrified and wants to save her somehow, but someone else gets the jump on him. Anne's friends have come to save her, and Caitlin holds her as she and everyone else ride on Armin's back. They help Anne climb back up and say that they should immediately run away from this place, but she doesn't want to leave Lloyd behind. Suddenly, she notices a book next to her and finds the way to turn Lloyd back into a human. For that, she needs one dragon, one spirit, one magician, one human girl, the scepter, and Anne to hold the scepter. This can't just be a coincidence. Apparently it is not, because below the instructions to save Lloyd, there is a message from 999,999. 999 other Annes who failed to save their Lloyd wish the current Anne the best of luck. She immediately commands her friends to follow her to save Lloyd. Albert, Elle, and Caitlin stop Lloyd from attacking them while Armin leads them to the core of the monstrosity. According to the book, Anne would find a pair of eyes struggling to survive at the core, and just as she sees them, she realizes Lloyd is there. She screams out his name and rushes towards him. The next day, she wakes up with Lloyd by her side and tells him about the dream where he turned into a monster and she saved him. He simply replies that it was not a dream. Anne is shocked and happy at the same time that she saved Lloyd. She asks Lloyd if he is fine and starts crying as she recalls how afraid she was. He wipes her tears, and Anne remarks that this is how she knew he was still conscious inside the black monster. Lloyd asks her why she saved him, and she replies that she loves him. He hugs her and asks her to call him by his name from now on, and Anne feels that she has finally gotten a family. Meanwhile, Charlotte is in a bar drinking away her worries. Now that Anne has rescued Lloyd by herself, she has given up trying to change the world to how it was supposed to be. Charlotte thinks that she has already lost Lloyd, but there are other love interests like Frank. Just as she mentions his name, Frank is right behind her. Well, I guess it is time for the side ships to sail. Back at the palace, Lloyd looks at his sleeping wife and notices a scar on her neck that the crazy scientist gave her. Even Albert was not able to heal it properly with his magic, and he claimed that Anne was too strange, and that is why his powers didn't work on her. Lloyd doesn't even care what his wife actually is because he loves her. He then notices her journal and bucket list and finds that when she was in the Navitan kingdom, she wanted to eat lots of fruits, visit the best hotels and cafes, and look at beautiful jewelry. He is happy that he made most of these dreams come true already, but then reads something interesting. Back at the bar, Frank has to deal with a completely hammered Charlotte, who calls him to sit next to her. She starts describing him suddenly and then says that he is a complete animal in bed. She declares that if she can't have the male lead, she will at least have him. Frank doesn't even understand half the things she is saying. And then Charlotte suddenly kisses him. He is too flustered and decides to take her somewhere where no one else will see them. They go to the garden where Charlotte once again seizes the opportunity to kiss him and says she is looking forward to what comes after it. The next day, she wakes up in Louise's room, who is telling her to get ready and pack her bed because the Emperor and Empress are going on a vacation, and they will follow them there. Charlotte doesn't really care about it right now. And then she finds a note from Frank, who says that he will claim his payment from her since she took his first kiss. Meanwhile, she is super excited because Lloyd is taking her on a vacation to the lake city of Stoa, which she has always wanted to visit. She says that his choice is so perfect that it seems he read her mind. In the lake city of Stoa, the servants welcome the emperor to his mansion. They are afraid because they have only heard bad things about him, but they are also curious to see the pretty empress. They find that Anne is indeed as pretty as the rumors say, and she can truly make the tyrant emperor do her bidding. Suddenly, a knight comes there and informs him that he completed the mission he was asked to do. Lloyd leaves with him, and as Anne enjoys the cold breeze alone, she has no idea that someone has his eyes on her. He is Kurt, the crown prince of the Eastern Continent's Dark Empire. His advisors told him that Anne was a really special entity called the Ender, and they needed her in the Dark Empire. That is why he is here to kidnap her, even though he doesn't completely believe the advisors and scholars. However, he thinks that if Anna doesn't turn out to be the Ender, he can just marry her after he kidnaps her. Meanwhile, Lloyd meets up with the Nate, who came back from the mission to investigate why Maggie's Pies was closed. Today, he learns that the golden apples that are needed to make their special apple pies have been attacked by a mythical creature. Meanwhile, the Council of Stoa is worried because the number of their tourists has been decreasing lately, especially ever since the crazy Emperor and Empress came here. As they wonder what to do, Caitlin comes there riding on Armin. The council immediately requests Caitlin, whom they call the Dragon Knight, to become a center of attraction. To boost their tourism, they offer free rooms and free food to the girl and her dragon, and they happily take the offer. Later, they reach Anne and tell her everything that happened. They then ask Lloyd why he suddenly summoned them here, and he replies that he wanted to ride on a dragon's back and admire the city from the sky. Soon after that, they learn that a famous theater company called Hertine Theater Troupe has arrived in Stoa. Since Caitlin and Armin have brought in a lot of tourists recently, Caitlin is a huge fan of the main star of the troupe, a handsome blonde man named Herton. And Armin says that he looks better while they argue, and absent-mindedly says that the Dragon Lord had long blonde hair when she was in human form. And Armin is shocked that she knows this and has no idea how she knows this, because almost all her memories from that special library have been wiped clean. On the other hand, Katrina is also in Stoa, and she seems to desire vengeance on Anne, who took everything from her. She lost her power as the heir to the Grand Sorceress and was even kicked out of her country. Suddenly, a book drops next to her, and Katrina opens it and finds that it talks about ways to kill Anne. Meanwhile, Anne has also been trying to look for the special books again, but she can't find any. She is concerned that she couldn't heal Lloyd properly, because ever since that day, he has been oddly caring and has not tried to make any move on her. At night, since Anne needs the vitamin D, she goes to Lloyd's room at night and finds him changing. He tells her that there is somewhere he needs to go, and she insists that she will join him. Lloyd has no choice, and he takes her along to Maggie's pie shop. Anne is shocked that he was planning to surprise her with some pies behind her back, and she thinks that her husband is really adorable. Back at the Imperial Palace, Frank confronts Louise about Charlotte because apparently she has hidden her. Once again, Louise feigns ignorance, so Frank threatens to tell her dad that his daughter has given up on her dream to become the Empress and is happy just as the lady-in-waiting. She folds upon hearing this threat and gives him Charlotte's address, wondering why the Knight Commander is so obsessed with just the maid.
Love the manhwa? Subscribe for more. Your support makes it all possible. Hit subscribe now!